To be understood is a luxury few are granted. To be authentic is a sentence, a verdict, a declaration of exile. Society murmurs endlessly, judging softly, coercing subtly, rewarding those who follow the herd and punishing those who see clearly. You are not safe here. You are never safe here. The world fears truth, fears clarity, fears those who dare to speak without compromise. And so you walk among them, always alone, always slightly apart, always misunderstood. The first step is to recognize it. To live with integrity is to invite isolation. To speak honestly is to invite judgment. To refuse falsehood is to estrange yourself from comfort. And yet, this is not misfortune. It is the law of existence. The moment you choose authenticity, you sign the invisible contract with solitude. Misunderstanding will shadow your every word. Alienation will trail your every step. And you must learn to endure it with eyes wide open. Observe the faces around you. They smile politely, nod in agreement, accept appearances without question. Yet beneath the masks, a subtle unease stirs. They sense your difference. They sense your refusal to participate in the dance of illusion. And they respond with misunderstanding, subtle hostility, avoidance. It is not malice always, nor cruelty. Often it is fear. Fear of clarity. Fear of being confronted with what they refuse to see. You are a mirror, and mirrors are dangerous. To be authentic is to rebel, quietly, inevitably, against the collective. You may dress it as reason, as morality, as principle. Others will see arrogance. Others will see defiance. Others will see madness. And they will retreat, consciously or unconsciously, into their comfortable illusions. You will be left in silence. You will be left in exile. But this exile is not failure. It is the natural consequence of lucidity. The cost is immediate and subtle. Friends drift. Lovers misunderstand. Colleagues speculate. Gossip fills the spaces where understanding should have lived. You feel the isolation press against you, a weight without relief. And yet, even here, a strange relief emerges. Misunderstanding is proof that you are seeing clearly. Alienation is the signal that you have refused deception. Solitude is the confirmation that you have preserved integrity. Desire complicates this. The human heart seeks connection, seeks approval, seeks the warmth of recognition. You desire to be heard, to be accepted, to be known. And yet, the price of clarity is precisely that others will never fully comprehend you. You cannot have both, integrity and universal understanding. To insist on being understood is to surrender authenticity. To surrender authenticity is to betray the self. And so you endure, always alone, always partly hidden, always resisting the pull of false harmony. Look closely at the world of conformity. It is subtle, merciless, pervasive. Society exerts 1,000 invisible pressures. To imitate, to defer, to conform, to participate in rituals of appearance. Every nod of agreement, every polite smile, every superficial compliment reinforces the norm. And those who deviate, who question, who illuminate the contradictions they are cast out, quietly, invisibly, slowly. The misunderstood are not always punished overtly. Often they are ignored, erased, rendered invisible. And invisibility, in a world obsessed with visibility, is a form of exile. Even your own mind becomes a landscape of conflict. You yearn for companionship, yet you cannot betray insight. You crave understanding, yet you cannot compromise principle. You feel the tension of desire against lucidity, the ache of longing against the necessity of truth. The solitude imposed by authenticity is both a torment and a gift. It is the crucible in which consciousness is refined, where the self meets itself unflinchingly, stripped of all illusions. The paradox is subtle. To live authentically is to suffer misunderstanding, yet the suffering itself confirms your clarity. Each insult, each whispered judgment, each subtle withdrawal is a mirror reflecting your difference, your lucidity, your refusal to conform. The world misunderstands, yes, but the self recognizes. The self observes. The self endures. And in this endurance lies a rare dignity, melancholic, solitary, unwavering. There is a beauty here, though it is quiet and somber. Solitude reveals the contours of existence. Misunderstanding sharpens the perception of reality. Alienation is the backdrop against which authenticity shines. You are a lone lamp in a dim room, illuminating truths that others cannot see, cannot hear, cannot bear to face. And in this illumination, there is a strange comfort. The the knowledge that you have remained faithful to the self, even when the world refuses to acknowledge it. And so you walk through life partly unseen, partly incomprehensible, partly exiled. You speak your truths softly yet firmly, knowing they will be twisted, misinterpreted, ignored. You act with integrity, yet the consequences are invisible, unremarked, misunderstood. You endure the solitude not as punishment, but as the natural rhythm of living authentically. Exile is the companion of clarity, misunderstanding the shadow of truth, and solitude the vessel in which consciousness endures. Listen closely to the silence between interactions, the pause between words. The emptiness after laughter fades. Here, in these quiet spaces, the self meets itself fully. There is no pretense, no expectation, no judgment, only awareness. And in that awareness, the weight of misunderstanding becomes a meditation, the ache of exile a teacher, and the burden of authenticity a rare and solemn grace. The world is not kind to the clear-eyed. Society rewards imitation, superficiality, and compliance. Those who observe closely, who speak plainly, who refuse the comforting illusions, they unsettle the herd. Misunderstanding is inevitable, alienation is certain, and yet most will never see the subtle tyranny that enforces conformity, the quiet coercion that molds thought and speech and action. Culture is a mirror, but a distorted one. It reflects what the masses wish to see, not what is. The misunderstood are always distorted, their words twisted into arrogance, their intentions recast as defiance, their lucidity labeled madness. The world cannot bear transparency, cannot tolerate honesty, cannot endure the solitude of one who refuses to participate in its illusions. And so, the exile becomes permanent, the misinterpretation inevitable. Even the casual gestures of social life are fraught with subtle violence. A smile that is not returned, a question ignored, a conversation shifted away from uncomfortable truths. Each small act reinforces the exile. Each subtle dismissal reminds the authentic mind that it walks alone. The misunderstood is not banished with fanfare. It is erased with gentleness, with politeness, with invisibility, a slow, quiet form of cruelty. Observe the mechanisms of gossip and rumor. Words, once spoken, are never entirely your own. They are filtered through the desires, fears, and projections of others. Your intent is irrelevant. Your clarity is irrelevant. The world sees only what it wishes to see. Authenticity is interpreted as arrogance. Insight is interpreted as rebellion. Truth is interpreted as threat. And the exile is reinforced, a cycle without interruption. Modernity offers no reprieve. Technology, communication, and constant interaction create an illusion of connection, yet amplify misunderstanding. Messages are distorted, tones misread, intentions misconstrued. Even intimacy is fraught with projection. The more visible you are, the more magnified the misinterpretation. And the more the world misunderstands, the more the authentic must endure. The solitude becomes denser, the exile more acute, the awareness sharper. And yet, there is a strange paradox. The very misinterpretation, the very alienation, the very exile confirms authenticity. If you were easily understood, if your truths were comfortably accepted, if the herd embraced your clarity, then you would have compromised. Misunderstanding is the mark of integrity. Solitude is the sign of insight. Alienation is the companion of truth. The world is uncomfortable because you are real, and reality is always uncomfortable. The herd instinct enforces conformity with a subtle but inexorable pressure. People instinctively reject what they cannot assimilate. Your thoughts, your speech, your refusal to conform are alien to them. They react with discomfort, fear, amusement, avoidance. And in these reactions, the misunderstood learns the price of lucidity, permanent exile, subtle yet inescapable, imposed by the collective even when no explicit act of cruelty occurs. Yet, in observing society, in understanding the mechanics of misunderstanding, a rare clarity emerges. You begin to see the illusions as they are, the herd as it functions, the inevitability of alienation as the natural consequence of authenticity. And in seeing this clearly, a strange calm arises. Not joy, not approval, not triumph, only lucidity. Only the quiet knowledge that solitude is not failure, but the inevitable companion of truth. Exile is not always external, often it is internal. The misunderstood finds that most of the world cannot comprehend the self. Even those close, even those trusted, even those loved, will misread, will distort, will fail to see the mind as it truly is. Misunderstanding seeps into every interaction, every gesture, every word. And yet, to resist the seduction of misinterpretation, to persist in honesty, to endure in clarity, this is courage. This is the quiet triumph of authenticity. And so, the misunderstood walks the streets, sits among others, engages in conversation, all while observing the machinery that marginalizes them. They watch with detached awareness, noting the projections, the assumptions, the distortions. They endure, always conscious, always alert, always accepting the cost of clarity. In this endurance, there is dignity subtle, solemn, melancholic, unwavering. To endure misunderstanding is to endure life itself. The pain of exile is immediate, yet its consequence is subtle. The mind grows sharp, the self becomes precise. The heart learns to measure the value of truth against the fleeting comforts of approval. Solitude, once feared, becomes a companion. The misunderstood comes to see that to be alone is not punishment, but a natural consequence of clarity. Truth is never convenient, it is rarely accepted. The authentic cannot negotiate with illusion without compromise. To maintain integrity is to alienate, to invite misinterpretation, to bear the weight of being apart. Yet this is no cause for despair, it is evidence of courage. To act authentically, to speak clearly, to live without masks, is to confront the world with unflinching lucidity, and lucidity is a rare strength. The self, in solitude, observes itself with patience. Desire rises, expectation pulses, the longing for understanding stirs, and yet the mind, aware of these currents, does not surrender. It watches, notes, measures. It recognizes the tension between the yearning for connection and the necessity of integrity. In this recognition, there is balance. In this awareness, there is control. Not over the world, not over the will, not over misunderstanding, but over oneself. The misunderstood comes to embrace paradox. Alienation is not merely loss, it is proof of insight. Misinterpretation is not merely injury, it is evidence of honesty. Exile is not merely punishment, it is the laboratory in which consciousness is refined. The mind, now unburdened by illusions of universal comprehension, experiences a strange freedom. Freedom from expectation, freedom from false harmony, freedom from the tyranny of appearances. Solitude sharpens perception. It allows reflection untrammeled by distraction. It allows observation of the subtle mechanics of desire, of the currents of conformity, of the invisible chains that bind the herd. In this quiet, the self sees clearly, without fear or compromise. And in seeing clearly, a form of strength emerges, not visible, not celebrated, not applauded, only real, only private, only lucid. Even the ache of loneliness becomes instructive. It teaches patience, it teaches endurance. It teaches the courage to remain steadfast, even when the world cannot witness, cannot acknowledge, cannot comprehend. Misunderstanding ceases to sting with bitterness. It becomes the metric of authenticity. Each slight, each whisper, each evasive glance is a confirmation. Clarity demands exile. To be misunderstood is a badge. Melancholic, solitary, unspoken, yet unmistakable. And in this recognition, a paradoxical affirmation arises. Not of hope, not of triumph, not of joy, but of integrity. The misunderstood may walk alone, may speak alone, may exist largely unseen. Yet in every word spoken without compromise, in every act performed without deceit, in every thought held without fear, there is a quiet victory. The courage to remain oneself when the world cannot understand. Solitude is no longer a punishment. It is a practice. It is the medium through which the self encounters itself, unadorned, unguarded, uncompromised. Misunderstanding is no longer a wound, but a guide. Exile is no longer a curse, but a testament. And the misunderstood learns to endure, aware, patient, dignified, steadfast, in the quiet knowledge that authenticity is worth every moment of alienation. And so, the misunderstood walks among the crowd, yet apart. They speak, yet are rarely heard. They act, yet are rarely comprehended. They live, yet are often unseen. And yet, within this exile, within this solitude, within this enduring misinterpretation, there is a rare clarity, a recognition that the self remains intact, unbroken, lucid, and courageous. Even as you endure, you feel the weight of the invisible walls around you. Every glance, every judgment, every subtle avoidance is a reminder that the world cannot understand you. They do not wish to understand. Most cannot. Their eyes are trained on illusions, their ears deaf to clarity. And so, you inhabit a world that simultaneously surrounds you and ignores you, the true geography of exile. You have learned that the desire for comprehension is both a longing and a trap. To wish that others could see you as you see yourself is to invite disappointment. To hope that your words will find resonance is to suffer more acutely when they fall silent or are twisted into forms alien to your intent. And yet, the courage to be misunderstood persists, because it is not about them. It is about you. It is about remaining intact, unbroken, whole within your own awareness, despite the distortions projected by the world. Walk through a crowd and notice the subtle dissonances. Their laughter carries undertones of avoidance. Their attention drifts when you speak of what matters most. Their faces register a quiet, uneased discomfort of encountering clarity. They retreat not with malice, but with the instinctive protection of ignorance. And, in witnessing this, a peculiar peace emerges. The exile is confirmed. The misunderstanding is guaranteed. And in that confirmation, a clarity arises that is rare and necessary. You know where you stand, and you need no false applause. The solitude imposed by truth is not empty. It is filled with observation. It is filled with reflection. It is filled with the subtle music of consciousness attuned to reality rather than illusion. You begin to understand that misunderstanding is not an affliction but a natural consequence of insight. That alienation is not a failure but a testament. That exile is not punishment but the terrain in which the self matures, where the mind sharpens, and where the soul learns to endure without crutches. Consider the subtle pleasures of this endurance: the ability to act without compromise, the freedom to think without distortion, the quiet pride in knowing that your own integrity remains untouched, even if the world refuses to witness it. These are not comforts easily celebrated. They are delicate, almost imperceptible, and yet they are profound. In a society designed to blind, to sedate, to conform, the conscious observer holds a lantern. It is small, it is fragile, but it illuminates. Misunderstanding manifests in countless ways. Friends question your motives. Lovers misread your intentions. Colleagues suspect hidden arrogance. Even strangers sense a difference, an imbalance, and recoil subtly. Every interaction is filtered through their assumptions, their desires, their fears. And you endure. You observe without resentment. You act without defiance. You speak without apology. And in doing so, you practice a courage that is invisible, quiet, and unshakable. Technology amplifies these dynamics, though in different forms. Social networks, messaging, and endless communication channels give the illusion of connection, but magnify misinterpretation. Every word you write, every post, every gesture is seen through the prism of another's projection. Tone is misconstrued, meaning is lost, intent is distorted, and still you remain authentic, unyielding, aware. You learn that visibility does not guarantee understanding, and that to be seen is not the same as to be comprehended. The paradox grows more intricate with each observation. The more lucid you become, the more certain you are to be misunderstood. Clarity provokes resistance. Honesty provokes avoidance. Integrity provokes isolation. And yet, the observer within notes this pattern without bitterness. Each instance of alienation, each subtle misreading, each enforced solitude confirms that you have resisted the seduction of compromise. You are exactly where clarity demands you be. Solitude is no longer a void. It becomes a medium, a workshop for consciousness, a space where the self examines its own desire, its own impulses, its own thoughts, stripped of illusion. Here, in this exile, the misunderstood confronts the machinery of the mind, observes the relentless currents of the will, and discerns the subtle structures of suffering. Alienation is not emptiness, it is insight. Misunderstanding is not cruelty, it is evidence. Exile is not a sentence, it is the terrain of lucidity. And in this solitude, the self cultivates a rare endurance. Every misinterpretation becomes a meditation. Every absence of acknowledgement becomes a mirror reflecting your own integrity. Every slight, every whisper, every casual avoidance becomes a testament to the courage required to remain authentic. The misunderstood begins to understand that endurance itself is a form of triumph, private, unheralded, yet profound. The world may never understand. The crowd may never acknowledge. Even the closest companions may misread, misinterpret, or fail to grasp the depth of your insight. And yet, within this certainty, there is calm, not comfort, not elation, not validation, only the quiet, deliberate knowledge that your own awareness is intact, that your mind remains free, that your integrity remains unbroken. Walk through this exile with eyes wide open. Observe the patterns, the subtle rejections, the quiet distortions. Speak with clarity, act with honesty, think with lucidity. Misunderstanding will continue, alienation will deepen, yet the self endures, conscious, patient, uncompromised. And in enduring, it discovers the rarest of freedoms, the freedom of integrity in a world indifferent to it. Even the passage of time cannot diminish this solitude. Decades may come and go, friends may fade, generations may pass. The misunderstood remains, a witness to both the world's illusions and the endurance of consciousness. Each year spent walking alone, each conversation misunderstood, each act of honesty unrewarded is a refinement, a polishing of lucidity, a strengthening of inner courage. Consider the subtle beauty in this. To be alone and still awake, to be misunderstood and still unbroken, to endure exile without resentment, this is a discipline, a quiet art of living. The misunderstood learns to cherish these invisible victories, to measure triumph not by applause, but by clarity, not by understanding, but by integrity, not by companionship, but by lucidity. And now, in this enduring exile, the self encounters a paradoxical affirmation. Misunderstanding is permanent, yes. Alienation is eternal, yes. Exile is unavoidable, yes. And yet, the courage to persist, to remain authentic, to live without compromise, transforms suffering into awareness, solitude into refinement, alienation into dignity. There is a triumph here, subtle, melancholic, and private, that the world cannot grant, and yet no one can take away. Walk slowly, then. Speak carefully. Live fully, even in obscurity. Let the world misunderstand. Let society distort. Let companions fail to grasp. It matters not. You are awake. You endure. You remain yourself. And in that act alone, in that refusal to surrender, there is courage, there is clarity, there is beauty. The world will never fully hear you. It will twist your words, distort your intentions, misread your heart. And yet, you walk on. You endure. You remain yourself. Not for them, not for applause, not for understanding, but because you must. Because your integrity is yours alone. Unborrowed, unassailable, inviolate. Exile is not punishment. Misunderstanding is not failure. Solitude is not emptiness. These are the natural companions of clarity, the inevitable shadows cast by authenticity. And to walk with them, to acknowledge them, to endure them, this is courage in its purest, quietest form. Listen to the silence around you. Hear the spaces between words, the pauses in conversation, the empty rooms of expectation. In these gaps, the self speaks with honesty. In these pauses, lucidity emerges. In these quiet chambers of consciousness, the misunderstood finds its rarest companion, itself, fully present, fully awake, fully intact. No one may celebrate you, no one may acknowledge your courage, no one may witness your integrity, and yet it is enough. Enough that you have preserved yourself, that you have acted without compromise, that you have spoken with clarity, that you have endured the exile imposed by truth. This is victory. Private unheralded, solemn, profound. Let misunderstanding fall. Let alienation linger. Let the crowds turn away in discomfort or indifference. You are beyond their approval, beyond their comprehension, beyond their influence. You exist in clarity, in lucidity, in the quiet strength that comes from living authentically, no matter the cost. Walk slowly through the world. Then, speak with honesty, act with integrity, live without surrender. Let the exile follow. Let solitude accompany. Let the misinterpretation persist. For in this enduring, in this quiet defiance of illusion, there is a beauty the world cannot grant and cannot diminish. The courage to be misunderstood is not loud. It does not seek applause. It does not demand recognition. It is quiet, patient, solemn. It is a lantern held in a darkened room. It is a steady pulse of awareness. It is the unwavering witness of a consciousness that refuses compromise. And in this witness, In this quiet endurance, in this solitary affirmation of truth, you are whole, you are lucid, you are courageous. You have survived the exile of misunderstanding, and in surviving, you have achieved the rarest triumph, the triumph of the self, intact, awake, and unbroken. You are awake, and that is enough.